When I first saw what happened in the Monday night game between the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks, I laughed my ass off. It didn't matter that I knew that the Packers clearly had been screwed at the end of the game. The way I looked at it, karma's a bitch, Green Bay. And 23 years later, yeah, you got yours. It just took a long time to fester. If anybody wonders why I'm saying that, the Mikowski game from 1989 at Lambeau Field, Bears versus Packers. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, look it up on YouTube. You'll understand once you see it. 23 years later, y'all got yours. Took a long time, sure, but it came back at you, and karma ultimately is a bitch. Now, the bottom line is you could sit there and say, well, Golden Tate should have been called for offensive pass interference, and he should have. You could sit there and say, well, Jennings looked like he had possession of it first. He landed on the ground, and then he had a foot go out of bounds without demonstrating a clear possession and making a football move to signify that he made the catch. Therefore, it should be an incompletion, not an interception. And that would be true as well. You could talk about the fact that you didn't see a referee, signal touchback. You saw one referee signal this and another referee signal this. And all of these different things are true. And from my standpoint, I could say, a lot of times we focus on the blown call or the one big play and ignore all the other things that happened during the course of the game. Maybe for, let's say, Josh Sidon and TJ Lang, some of the offensive linemen for the Packers who were bitching on Twitter after the game, maybe you should have protected your quarterback better and not given up 8 sacks in the first half. That's what you should be doing on Twitter, is apologizing for your piss-poor play in that game. I'm just saying. But ultimately, and we always know this, it's the easy way out, it's the cheap way out, it's the convenient way out, it's the understandable way out. All the focus and emphasis is going to be on this one play. And not surprisingly, because we knew this was coming, it was going to take that one straw that breaks the camel's back moment to where the NFL and Commissioner Roger Goodell would sit there and say, oh, we can't have this anymore. It's time to bring the regular guys back. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship and it's like the NFL was a woman in this case, in the sense that you can sit there and it's clear as day what needs to happen. It's clear as day what the right thing to do is. But they're more concerned about proving themselves right, even though there's no way possible to prove themselves right in a particular instance, that they stubbornly cling to that instead of doing what they're going to ultimately have to do anyways, which is the right thing to do. No matter how much they bitch and moan about this, they're going to have to do it anyways. So why make it so goddamn difficult, and why prolong the inevitable for so damn long? Things are so much easier when you don't make things more difficult on yourselves. So, when situations like this happen in the business world, in the sports world, politics, what have you, ultimately the buck stops at the top. The buck stops with one man. And I'm kind of frustrated at the fact that all the fans, these players, blah, 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 are focusing on the wrong people. They're blaming replacement refs that were not properly equipped, not properly trained, not properly qualified to do the job to fucking begin with, yet were put in a position to clearly fail and did. We're going to blame them because they're the scapegoats. They're the ones we see. Because people tend not to think in layers or think intricately. And they take the easiest way out possible, the most common denominator. It's not the replacement ref's fault. Forgive those guys. Yeah, they made their mistakes. But most of us would have been just as bad, if not worse, if we were in that same position. We could bullshit all we want, but we know that's the truth. Ultimately, the buck stops with one man. The person that deserves all of the blame in this entire situation is none other than NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Now, when Goodell replaced Paul Tagliabue in the late summer of 2006, he primarily, came in under the mantra of, I'm going to clean this shit up. And that's what he did. And at the time, he was referencing the kind of out-of-control player conduct, what players were doing off the field in their local communities. It was giving the players a bad rep. It was giving teams a bad rep. It was giving the league as a whole a bad rep. And, some of the discipline that has been handed out to some players has been fair, some others not fair. And for some other players, they've been able to skate off easily. There are some definite contradictions, hypocrisies, and some double standards in some of the disciplinary measures. But I don't think anybody can disagree that it needed to happen. the game did need to be cleaned up. In particular, we needed some discipline back in the NFL. And that's what Roger Goodell brought to the table. And that's what he was. Paul Tagliabue was more of a, I'm not going to rock the boat if things are going well type manager. So you replace that type of manager with somebody that is going to rock the boat, that's going to hold people accountable, that's going to come in with a firm hand and ruffle some feathers. Because sometimes that's what you need to do to shake things up and send things back on the right course. But when you look at Roger Goodell over the years, I haven't been particularly impressed with his abilities as a commissioner. He's been so focused on trying to get more NFL games in London. Yes, let's go over to London and play more NFL games in a place where soccer has been and always will be king. You look at things like Spygate. That was a big scandal in the NFL in 2007, the New England Patriots and their blatant cheating. God knows how long it had been going on. But you sit there and you look and you're like, the penalties at the time, Belichick was fined, what, $500,000. The organization lost a first-round pick. But a few years later, you come to Bountygate, another bad scandal for the NFL, this time involving the New Orleans Saints. And you had Roger Goodell suspending coaches for the year, suspending defensive coordinators indefinitely, suspending players for several games or for the entire year. So this, where it did deal with player safety, and that's incredibly bad, and there did need to be some consequences there, was deemed to be so much worse that this guy here who blatantly cheated, and God knows for how long, and kind of lied about it, got off on a much lesser note than the guy who also kind of didn't be as forthright as he possibly could about it. And, the players and the other coaches, etc. So, it's like if you're going to sit there and you're running on this kind of platform of you're going to clean up the game and the integrity of the game. And this is Roger Goodell's own words, that his number one priority is to protect the shield, which is to protect the NFL, protect it as a brand, protect the integrity of the game, and also at the same time make the game safer for the players involved. That's his primary mission. It's his stated mission that he's went off of several times. But yet things under his watch like Spygate have happened, and Bountygate have happened. And now we get to the replacement refs of 2012. Going into the season, one way to affect the integrity of the game and negatively impact the safety of players is to have replacement officials. Because if they're not used to calling games at an NFL speed, if they're not used to calling NFL games, if they are not properly qualified to call NFL games, they might not be able and equipped and qualified to call some of the penalties that have been put in place to protect player safety. They may not be able to make some of those snap decision calls that you have in the course of a game that could negatively or positively impact the result for one team or another. Things that ultimately can affect the integrity of the game and player safety. That's why in the NFL the first few weeks you've seen several games where it seems like the defenses are almost able to get away with murder. And yes, a lot of us fans want more physicality back in the NFL, and we probably miss it. But the fact is it's getting to a point where it was hurting the overall quality of the play. And then the numerous missed calls, challenges without having timeouts and taking several minutes to even figure out what the hell you're challenging, and then taking several more minutes to determine what the call is. Or in some cases, just completely blowing the damn call. And in the case of the Monday night game with the Packers and Seahawks, completely being off base and completely missing the call and being the most primary reason and responsibility of why the game was the way it was. And ultimately, you have to look at Roger Goodell and you say, you went into the season where your whole mission statement as NFL commissioner has been protecting players, providing for their safety, and protecting the shield, meaning protecting the integrity of the game. And you went into the 2012 season, you incompetent nincompoop, with replacement officials, because you wanted to sit there and flex your muscle, because your ego was so important to you that you just had to prove that you were the HNIC of all that everybody saw in the NFL. Well, look at what the fuck happened, you dipshit. Now you got fans that are all pissed off, and rightfully so, because they knew the first 3 weeks of the season they were spoon-fed some bullshit. You're sitting there apologizing about it. The only thing you should be apologizing for is the fact that you're still the damn commissioner of the NFL. This type of incompetency in the business world, this type of stupidity, this type of gross negligence, and this type of arrogance usually is ultimately the thing that you would think, in the real world, mind you, would get managers fired, would get CEOs fired, would get, part owners replaced or bought out or what have you. But there's Roger Goodell, and he's probably going to skate off free and clear. People should be outraged about this. You have things like Spygate. Yes, that dates back to the Tagliabue era, but damn it, he didn't do enough to crack down then. Bountygate happened on his watch. And now you've got the replacement officials. Look at the replacement officials. Not only did it hurt the integrity of the game that you claim you want to protect so bad, and the brand that is important to you over everything else, you also put players' health at risk. You put the safety of the players at risk. And for that, you should be ashamed of yourself, Roger Goodell. The bottom line is, if Roger Goodell skates off with this and it's just a little bit of a black eye that goes away in a couple of weeks and people forget about it, then that's a damn shame. Roger Goodell in the media should be crucified for this, if you will. He should be slaughtered for this. Every week, every time, he should be held to task and made to answer for this bullshit. Because we had to sit there and watch games with the replacement officials that didn't know their ass from a hole in the ground half the time. They were affecting the integrity of the game, affecting the quality of the game as a whole. And all the while, people are blaming the replacement refs. Who the hell is the one that put him there to begin with? Who was the one that so arrogantly said before the season, the replacement refs will do a credible job and it will not affect player safety and will not affect the integrity of the game or hurt the NFL shield at all? You're an idiot! It's time for Roger Goodell to pay the piper. He's the one that's made this bed. He's the one that lied in it. Why all of a sudden now? When everybody knew this was going to happen, it was talked about in media, fans talked about it, organizations, players, coaches talked about this shit. They knew it was going to take something dramatically, drastically shitty to happen for the NFL to say, okay, now we'll bring back the refs. Why would you do that? It's just like a woman in a relationship. Why, if you know you're going to have to do it eventually, would you fight that inevitability, make shit harder for yourself and for everybody else, and all the while hurt the product that you're supposed to be protecting? My God. It's stupid. I hope Roger Goodell ultimately is forced to resign over this crap. The players should be pissed at him and only him. The coaches should be pissed at him and only him. The networks broadcasting games that had to broadcast this shit the first 3 weeks should be pissed at Roger Goodell and only Roger Goodell. The owners that voted to put this a-hole in place in late summer 2006 to begin with on the 5th ballot, he was such a popular choice. It took 5 tries before he finally got approved. Maybe the Oakland Raiders were right. They abstained from each and every single vote. I can't blame them. I wouldn't have voted for this son of a bitch now looking back. Shit. Roger Goodell must go. Period. I'm tired of him sitting there thinking he's bigger than the game. The NFL, for Roger Goodell, is just like a trophy on the mantelpiece. It's about Roger Goodell and his ego. Not the brand, not the shield, not the integrity of the game. That's it. It's not about player safety. It's about him and his damn ego. It's about time somebody called him out on it. The major media, the CBSs, the Foxes, the ESPNs, the NBCs, the ones that carry these NFL games should be leading the crusade to have this son of a bitch thrown out of the NFL's commissioner's office. Period. But they won't. Because in a couple of weeks this will be forgotten. And fans will sit there and go back to watching their football, getting drunk, eating wings, bitching about this and that. And all the while, it's kind of funny, too, all the bitching about the replacement refs. We sit there and seem to forget that we usually bitch about the regular refs, too, because they make their fair share of bad calls, too. But, when you're presented with something that seems to be the obvious scapegoat, you'll focus so much on that. It's easy human nature to understand. And all the while, the real villain in all this, Roger Goodell, skates off scot-free. Hashtag fire Roger Goodell. Let's get that trending Sunday on Twitter during the NFL games. Maybe it's time to start a movement. All the other movements you could talk about. How about one that really makes sense and would really help the NFL? Hashtag fire Roger Goodell. Let me know if you agree down below.